All right, so if you're a theater student, you know this feeling. You open up that exam paper, you see a massive question about the history of the musical, and you're just like, where do I even begin? Well, guess what? We're going to tackle that right now. We're going to build that perfect answer together, slide by slide.
So what we're going to do is break this whole thing down, starting from the absolute basics, and trust me, by the time we're done here, you're not just going to understand what a musical is, you're going to have a super clear, structured way to absolutely nail that exam question. Okay, so here's the game plan. First up, we're going to get a rock-solid definition. Then we'll check out the different types of musicals out there. After that, we're taking a trip through their incredible history, zoning in on how they took off in America, and finally, we'll clear up that age-old question, what's the real deal with Broadway versus off-Broadway? Let's get into it.
All right, let's jump right into section 1. The first part of any killer answer is a strong definition. So what is a musical, really? It's way, way more than just a play where people sing.
You know, at its heart, musical theater is this incredible hybrid art form. It's all about blending popular style songs, dance, and spoken words together. And what's the whole point of all this? Well, it's to tell a really gripping story and to make you, the audience, feel something powerful. That unique mix is what makes it so special. Okay, so what are the ingredients that make a musical work? What makes it great? It's these 5 key elements working in perfect harmony. You've got the songs themselves, the music, and lyrics. You've got the book, which is just the story and the dialogue. Then there's the choreography, the dance, the staging, which is all the movement, and finally the whole physical world of the show, sets, costumes, lighting. When all those pieces click together, that's when you get magic. Okay, and this is a big one, something that always comes up, the difference between a musical and an opera. The number one thing to remember? Dialogue. Musicals mix speaking and singing. Operas are almost always sung straight through. And that one difference changes everything, right? It's why musicals can feel a bit lighter, while operas often dive deep into tragedy. All right, we've got the basics down. Now let's get into the different flavors of musical theater. Because let's be real, not all musicals are the same. They come in a few distinct styles. Now, for that big exam question, you're definitely going to want to know these 3 main types. First, the musical comedy. These are your fun, high-energy shows where entertainment is king. Think Guys and Dolls. Then you have the musical play, like Oklahoma, which gets more serious and really focuses on the story. And finally, the concept musical. These are the really interesting ones, like Company, that are built around a central idea or theme instead of a straightforward plot. All right, let's get into the history, and this is a huge part of your answer. You might be surprised where it all began. Because, the American musical didn't just pop up out of nowhere. Its roots go way, way back.
Yeah, you heard that right. 2,500 years. It's kind of mind-blowing. But long before there was a Broadway, the very first kind of theater was actually musical theater. The story starts all the way back in ancient Greece.
So the earliest form we know about is this thing called the diphrambon. It was basically a religious celebration for the god Dionysus, where a big chorus would sing and dance together. But just think about what that is. A group performance that combines lyrics, music, and movement to tell a story. That's basically the ancient DNA of every single musical you see today. Pretty wild, right? Okay, so how did we get from ancient Greece to modern-day Broadway? How did this art form cross an ocean and turn into this uniquely American thing? Well, let's follow that path, starting back in the colonial days. So you can see, the seeds were planted way, way back. But if you're writing that essay, the real turning point you need to focus on is the late 1800s. In 1878, this thing called pinafore fever just exploded across the country, making people hungry for musicals. And right after that, vaudeville that started, which was this huge variety show circuit that became the perfect training ground for the first generation of musical theater stars. And I really want to drill down on this. HMS Pinafore wasn't just some hit show. No, it was a total game changer. It created a huge, loyal audience that was ready for more. It gave other writers a blueprint for how to build a musical. It showed that you could talk about serious social issues, but do it in a fun, entertaining way. Basically, Pinafore taught America how to make musicals and how to love them. I love this quote. It's perfect. It shows you just how much of an identity crisis these early shows were having. Nobody even knew what to call this new thing. So producers just threw every single adjective they could think of at it, hoping something would stick. It really captures how new and exciting and undefined the whole thing was. Then in the 1920s, something incredibly important happens: the rise of the black musical. A show like Shuffle Along wasn't just a massive hit, it was a cultural force. It actually helped to start breaking down segregation in New York's theaters and opened up real, meaningful opportunities for black performers. But, and this is a really important but for any deep analysis, the situation was complex. Even though these shows had black casts and brought in black audiences, they were very often written and controlled by white creators. It's a critical nuance to remember. But that golden age optimism, it didn't last forever. The 1970s were a really dark period for Broadway, and I mean that literally. The neighborhood around the theaters, Times Square, it just fell apart. It became a dangerous place. So the art form wasn't just struggling on stage. The world right outside the theater doors was literally falling apart. And while all that chaos was happening on the streets, there was this fierce creative battle happening on stage. It was like a three-way tug of war for the future of the musical. You had the new rebellious rock musicals like Hair, you had the traditional old school shows, and then you had these smart, challenging concept musicals. All three were fighting for the soul of the art form. Okay, this brings us to our final section, and it's a big one. It's a distinction you absolutely have to understand for any exam. What is the actual difference between a Broadway show and an off-Broadway show? So here's the deal. The difference isn't just about where the theater is or how many people it can fit. It's really about a whole different mindset, a different philosophy. Broadway is the big, commercial, mainstream machine. It's about creating a polished, profitable hit. Off-Broadway is the laboratory. It's where you go to see something new, something risky, something more experimental and artistic. Okay, so let's bring it all home. If you're building that 20-mark answer, this is your big takeaway. This is your thesis. The musical isn't just a static thing. It's a mirror. It's entertainment for sure, but more than that, it always reflects the society that made it, its politics, its problems, its dreams. From ancient Greece to modern Broadway, musicals tell us who we are. So, after this whirlwind tour through 2,500 years of history, struggle, and rebirth, I want to leave you with the same question that critics are still debating today. When you look at everything happening now, from the giant Broadway blockbusters to the tiny, strange shows in small theaters, what do you think? Is the musical a dead art form? Or is it something that's always, constantly being reborn?